Before we get started,
Everybody in.
does anyone want to get out?
Everybody in.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows
Ceremony
things
is
are bad.
about to
It's a
begin.
depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. We don't go out anymore. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. There's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my... I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. At first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
Here we go.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Good evening. Today is Friday, October 7th, 9:36 in the evening. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. I'm sorry if I haven't been here for, I believe it's been a week. I had a bad reaction to meat. I broke my tooth and I think I need to have it pulled out. So I might not be able to smile anymore. And thankfully, I am now able to barely function. Hindi na siya ganun kasakit. So, pardon me if this might be a long one. I'll be reading from one of my favorite books. This is entitled 75 Readings. It's an anthology for writers. And this contains a cacophony of wisdom that I have come to learn from and admire. There are a lot of really choice works that provides a lot of guidance during hard times. And of course, when you're trying to find your way out here in the jungle, then it is critical that you listen to the voice of the ages. So, what are we talking about? What are we going to do? What are we going to have a conversation about? It's going to be about, let's see if I have enough wisdom to talk about something we've lost along the way. I think we might have, or it might have been forgotten, not necessarily completely forgotten. I hope not. I hope not. So I'd like to start with rites of passage. What do we mean? Rites of passage. Like, do we have to kill a lion? Do we have to fight a bear to prove ourselves? Or it's not going to be that type of ceremony or a a ritual that we have to be so archaic or barbaric about. I think it's a ceremony that marks a very important transitional period for all of us, especially in men, especially in women, because it marks that certain period in our life. It gives great relevance to this particular point. There are activities, these are points in our life that we can look back and search for some form of guidance or some form of help. during these crises. So I'll be reading from The Predictable Crisis of Adulthood. It was written by Gail Sheehy. Like I said, pardon me, this might be a long one. So I think everyone is in some way familiar in one way or the other. We're aware of these things. In Christian based societies, I think we're more leaning towards a rite of passage being defined as baptisms, graduations, proms in a modern sense. So how do we find out if we're already part of something more in our life? What what provides a sense of direction, a sense of belonging, or what tells you that you have outgrown this particular point in your life? How are we connecting with the wisdom of the past, of the ages? Where are the sacred spaces or sacred rituals? What do we hold sacred? So I think these are certain things that are very critical in helping us at least make some sense in major changes in our life. Mine was the death of my father. That's when I found out that I'm a man. I'm the man now. Because that's what he said. When I die, you're the man of the house now. So, did I really understand that? Did I really know what it meant to be a man? When do you become a man? Was I prepared to be a man? Was I prepared for that particular role? How do you take on the role of being a man? I have to honestly admit that I was ill prepared when I became a father. I knew, of course, how to take care of children. I took care of my sister's firstborn, but that's not enough. How should I be prepared? How do I know? What does it mean to be an adult, to be a man, to be a parent, to be responsible for something, to be accountable for something more than yourself? So we'll try to give some answers to that by reading this. Hopefully, I'll give it justice when I read it. So, again, this is The Predictable Crises of Adulthood by Gail Sheehy. We are not unlike a particularly hardy crustacean, the lobster, grows by developing and shedding a series of hard protective shells. Each time it expands from within, the confining shell must be sawed off. It is left exposed and vulnerable until in time a new covering grows to replace the old. With each passage from one stage of human growth to the next, we too must shed a protective structure. We are left exposed and vulnerable, but also yeasty and embryonic again, capable of stretching in ways we hadn't known before. These sheddings may take several years or more. Coming out of each passage through, we enter a longer and more stable period in which we can expect relative tranquility and a sense of equilibrium regained. As we shall see, each person engages the steps of development in his or her own characteristic step style. Some people never complete the whole sequence. Maybe that's where all of this confusion comes from. Good evening, Kuya Kuts. Oy, good evening, Angela. Good evening. Carl, good evening. So, coming out of each passage, as we shall see, each person engages in steps of development, and some people gets to skip over or incomplete, how do you say that, resolve, does not resolve with one step. It has to be a whole sequence. And by jumping out of the parental home into a job or marriage, for example, the problems in separating from the caregivers of childhood, nor do we achieve autonomy once and for all by converting our dreams into concrete goals. Even when we attain these goals, the central issues or tasks of one period are never fully completed, tied up, and cast aside. But when they lose their primacy, the current life structure has served its purpose. We are ready to move on to the next period. Can one catch up? What might look to others like listlessness, contrariness, or madding refusal to face up to an obvious task may be a person's own unique detour that will bring him out later on the other side. Developmental gains won can later be lost and re-won. It is plausible, though it can't be proven, that the mastery of one set of tasks fortifies us for the next period and the next set of challenges. But it is important not to think too mechanistically. Machines work by units. The bureaucracy works step by step. Human beings, thank God, have individual inner dynamics that can never be precisely coded. Although I have indicated the ages when Americans are likely to go through each stage and the differences between men and women, where they are striking, do not take the ages too seriously. The stages are the thing, the most particularly the sequence. Here is the briefest outline of the developmental ladder. Okay, let's just try to chew on this for a moment. This is not only limited to the Western lifestyle. After going through this, after reading it, because I wanted to make sure that it would also apply to us in our Asian life. There are certain differences because we are not required, although there are some families that require you to leave the parents' domicile at some point. Some choose to earlier, such as myself. But from like our culture, we are very tight knit with the family. And I think this is slowly being eroded as we try to adopt a Western lifestyle or a westernized culture. I'm I don't know how to, I think that's the right term. We are actually starting to adapt the Western cultural scheme. Most often than not, we think we are being locked in, boxed in, we are being suffocated by our parents because they try to push onto us a life that they never had. We are, as children, I'm speaking in terms of being a child, because I am now a father. So maybe some children feel that they are being force fed into or forced into a life that they don't want to live. That's why they rebel. If you think about it, your parents simply want you to have the means and the opportunity, or at least the means to have an opportunity to make a better life for yourself. Maybe in our eyes, we see that this is their way of ensuring a better future for themselves. Or maybe that's just us seeing that as opposed to what the parents really want. The parents simply want you to have the means to gain the opportunity to make a better life for yourself. Okay, we'll move on. Pulling up root. Before 18, the motto is live and clear. I have to get away from my parents. But there are words, but the words are seldom connected to action. Generally, still safely part of our families, even if away at school, we feel our autonomy to be subject to erosion from the moment to moment. After 18, we begin pulling up roots in earnest. College, military service, the short term travels are customary vehicles our society provides for the first round trips between family and society in the attempt to separate our view of the world from our family's view, despite vigorous protestations to the contrary. I know exactly what I want. We cast about for any beliefs we can call our own. And in the process of testing those beliefs, we are often drawn to fads, preferably those most mysterious and inaccessible to our parents. Whatever tentative memberships we try out in the world, the fear haunts us that we are really kids who cannot take care of ourselves. We cover that fear with acts of defiance and mimicked confidence. For allies to replace our parents, we turn to our contemporaries, our friends. They become conspirators. So long as their perspective meshes with our own, they are able to substitute for the sanctuary of the family. But that doesn't last very long. In the instant they diverge from the shaky ideals of our group, they are seen as betrayers. Rebounds to the family are common between ages 18 and 22. The task of this passage are to locate ourselves in a peer group, a sex role, an anticipated occupation, an ideology or worldview. As a result, we gather the impetuous to leave home physically, and the identity begin leaving home emotionally. Even as one part of us seeks to be an individual, another part longs to restore the safety and comfort of merging with another. Thus, one of the most popular myths of this passage is we can piggyback our development by attaching to a stronger one. But people who marry during this time often prolong financial, and emotional ties to the family and relatives that impede them from becoming self-sufficient. Self-sufficient. A stormy passage through the pulling up roots years will probably facilitate the normal progression in the adult life cycle. If one doesn't have an identity crisis at this point, it will erupt during a later transition when the penalties may be harder to bear. Okay, docs. No problem, Coach Ricky. No problem. No problem. So, from here, good evening, Sir Rafael Nugas. Good evening. Sir Rain Mutok. Good evening. From here, we can see for sure certain certain signs that we see from ourselves, from our own experience, from our own life, and maybe from our children. If you're a parent, I urge you to speak to them, ask them, especially if they're nearing this age or within this age group. It's a very critical part. They have to have at least a good communication, or at least that bond with a parent, at least one of you or both of you. It's very difficult. It's very difficult for parents as well as the children. It's on both sides. You're feeling left out being a child. You feel left out as a parent because you don't understand what they're going through. And you're most often than not too busy. You're in the office, you're at work, you're trying to juggle a life, especially if you're a single parent. You're trying to understand your own process, what's happening in your life, if you've lost your job or things like that. I apologize for the dog. So these are certain things that we have to consider. We have to take note of this as a parent and as a child. That's why I think it's very important for us to have that one meal where we're together, when we're having just casual conversations with our children, with each other, with our wife, with our partner, so that we have that certain bond, that certain connection, even through that little thing. It's very easy to forget the little things that keep us together. The trying 20s. The trying 20s confront us with the question of how to take hold in the adult world. Our focus shifts from the interior turmoils of late adolescence. Who am I? What is truth? And we become almost totally preoccupied with working out the external. How do I put my aspirations into effect? What is the best way to start? Where do I go? Who can help me? How did you do it? In this period, which is longer and more stable compared with the passage that leads to it, The tasks are enormous as they are exhilarating. To shape a dream, that vision of ourselves which will generate energy, aliveness, and hope, to prepare for life work, to find a mentor if possible, and to form a capacity for intimacy without losing in the process whatever consistency of self we have thus far mustered. The first test structure must be erected around a life we choose to try. So usually this happens when you leave home for college, if you stay in a dorm, or you you have chosen to live outside of your parents' house. Nung panahon namin during the 90s, stokwa. Ewan ko kung anong tawag ngayon. Hindi ko alam. Ganun pa rin kaya? I'm not sure. But during the 90s, that was the term, stokwa. Lalayas ka sa inyo. This was during high school. Um, about third year or fourth year before you go to college. And then after a year, or maybe during that particular summer, you go back home. But sadly, some of them come home damaged. Life in the streets is not very easy. That's why I think during this time, good times. Yes, sir. Good times. Good times. I left a lot earlier. Did a lot of stupid shit, but it did teach me a lot. So yes, definitely good times. Good times. So some of them, if it's a Western culture, it's during this particular period, during their 20s. But in the Philippines, I think it's a lot earlier sometimes, especially if you come from, um, I don't think it's limited to the poor, like a lower part of the income threshold. Sometimes they don't have a choice. You really have to leave. So I still remember working as having an opportunity to work alongside social workers. Some of them never had a choice. Some as young as 8 years old have to make a living for themselves. Sometimes they resort to certain ways to make a living that you you wouldn't believe. They're not only trying to escape poverty, but they're also trying to escape an abusive household, or abuses that they shouldn't have been experiencing at that age. And it has become a normal part of that life. If you're part of that, what's the right term? If you're part of that threshold, you get to experience life in all its form, in all its horror, sadly, sometimes. So I'll skip a few because I think it's too long. There's so many pages. I'll skip a few that will not form us, but I hope you will try to find this. I'll read the title. I'll put the title in the comments later. So two impulses, as always, are at work. One is to build a firm, safe structure for the future by making strong commitments to be set, yet people who slip into ready made form without self examination are likely to find themselves locked in. The other urge is to explore and experiment, keeping any structure tentative and therefore easily reversible. Taken to extreme, these are people who skip from one child job and one limited personal encounter to another, spending their 20s in a transient state. Although the choices of our 20s are not irrevocable, sometimes they do set in motion a life pattern. Some of us follow the lock in pattern, others the transient pattern, the wonder kind pattern, the caregiver pattern. And there are a number of others. Such patterns strongly influence the particular questions raised for each person during each passage. Buoyed by powerful illusions and belief in the power of will, we commonly insist in our 20s that we have chosen to do is the one true course in life. Our backs go up to the merest hint that we are like our parents. I am not like that. That 2 decades of parental training might be reflected in our current actions and attitudes. Not me is the motto. I am different. So, to wrap that up, for me, I think it would be best that you have, at least in one way or the other, before hitting your 20s, have experienced some form of a rite of passage, a transitorial period where you were given an amount, a certain amount of time to learn a particular trade, something that you can make money from, something that you can provide yourself cleanly, cleanly, a means of living, being able to provide for yourself. Like little things, buy your own clothes, your bag, or whatever things you really want. That's one of the few things I learned very early in the streets. Diskarte, sabi nga nila, selling shirts at the time. Hindi pa usong-uso yung ukay-ukay noon. We would make shirts, silk screen shirts, prints, mga drawing namin. Kasi tinuruan kami nung high school, ay ng elementary, gumawa ng silk screen, yung green film. So that's how we would make money for vacation. That's how I made money. Not only that, I would sell sketches of my friend, portraits rather, of of women being courted by our classmates. Shout out JR Yunson. These were certain things that we did. I would write. I would I would like sell during class. I would sell cream o individual chocolate dip packs. I would sell that. I would play billiards to get myself by. So that's how I learned. And I hope I get to teach my children that in one way or the other. To give them something that they're good at least they can make money from. so they have something to fall back on. And it also gives that sense of responsibility. In a way, moving on, catch 30. Impatient with devoting ourselves to the shoulds, a new vital a new vitality springs from within as we approach 30. Men and women alike speak of feeling too narrow and restricted. They blame all sorts of things, but that are restrictions boiled down to are the outgrowth of career and personal choices of the 20s. they may seem they may have been choices perfectly suited to that stage, but now the fit feels different. Some inner aspect that was left out is striving to be taken into account. Important new choices must be made and commitments altered or deepened. The work involves great change, turmoil, and often crisis. A simultaneous feeling of rock bottom and the urge to burst out. Okay. Sir Kobe Marquez, good evening. So let's touch on that. Rock bottom. When we say rock bottom, you are left without anything at all. Not necessarily just financially, but emotionally sometimes, spiritually sometimes. You are at an impasse. You are lost in the wilderness, or you are wandering the desert. Hitting rock bottom is very important. This is where you will learn a critical thing about yourself. Most often than not, hitting rock bottom will tell you who you are, will tell you if you really need to swallow your pride for whatever reason, and you need to ask for help. And knowing when to ask for help or knowing when to reach out is very important. We need to address that. We need to understand the machismo culture that has permeated our whole scheme, especially being a man, leads to hopelessness, leads to a state of mind where you are alone, that there is no one there to help you. Please know this. There are strangers out there willing to listen when you hit rock bottom. There are people out there that care for you that you don't know about, your friends, your colleagues. And this is one of the most important thing I think we have forgotten. We as men can ask for help. We as men can ask for guidance. There are certain roles certain ages play. This is where your mentors come in if you are lucky enough to have them. That's why it's very important that we have teachers that truly care, professors that truly care, uncles, friends, colleagues, family, friends that care for us, people who were there that as we grew up, that guide us during our time of struggle. Good evening, sir. Brian Catison. Sorry, hindi ko mabasa yung pangalan niyo, sir. Good evening. Shout out from Valencia, Bukidnon. Good evening. Thank you for watching. And that's very important. Please don't forget that. If you have an opportunity to be that mentor to a child, to a person growing up, please be that person. Be that person that they can imprint on certain values, certain characters that will make them a better person. If you have the ability to broadcast like this and you have a far wider audience, please show them something that they can take as they grow up. Yes, it's entertainment, but let's not forget that responsibility. If you're a woman, show girls how to become a better woman, an educated woman, an empowered woman. If you're a man, show a boy what it is to be a man of character, a man of value, a man of integrity. Show them these things. Show them what it means to be a man. Show them that being a man is beyond having the best car, having all of the beautiful women, having the biggest house, having millions, but without character. Show them that you can be poor in finances, but rich in character, in value, in pride. There's nothing wrong of having pride to what you are. Yes, you can be just from paycheck to paycheck, but you have never sold out your dreams. You have never sold out your soul for money. Maybe we will see less corrupt politicians if they see this, that there is something more important than money, fast cars, or all the women. Maybe if they see that if you value yourself, your character, your integrity, maybe when they understand that, maybe when they see that, we will see a lot less of the ills in society that we always complain about. We are training the next generation. They will only imprint on us what they will become, or they will become opposite of what they see from us. But wouldn't it be nice if they saw something good, something worth emulating? Our common response is the tearing up of the life we spent most of our 20s putting together. It may mean striking out on a secondary road toward a new vision, or converting a dream for running for president into a more realistic goal. The single person feels a push to find a partner. A woman who was previously content at home with children shapes to venture into the world. The childless couple reconsiders children. And almost everyone who is married, especially those married for 7 years, feels a discontent. If the discontent doesn't lead to a divorce, it will or should call for a serious review of the marriage and of each partner's aspiration in their catch 30 condition. The gist of that condition was expressed by a 29-year-old associate with a Wall Street law firm. I'm considering leaving the firm. I have been there for 4 years now. I'm getting good feedback, but I have no clients of my own. I feel weak. If I wait much longer, it will be too late, too close to that fateful time of decision on whether or not to become a partner. I'm success oriented, but the concept of being 55 years old and now stuck in a monotonous job drives me wild. It's a visceral reaction that I'm wasting my time. I'm trying to find some way to make a social contribution or a slot in a city government. I keep saying there's something more. Yes, sir. Definitely agree. Education and moral value. Hopefully, we can spread that message. Hopefully. Let me just move to women. I think in our culture right now, we're pushing women into certain roles. Not that I'm saying that they are not qualified for these particular roles, but let's not forget how important to a woman bearing a child. It is that particular cycle that they have to go through. It is an integral part of their psychology as well as their physiology to become a parent, a mother, to bear a child. Sometimes we forget, sometimes we get too focused or too caught up with that frame of mind. Career, career, career. And then we reach our life that we can no longer become a parent. And some I see that some do find a sense of acceptance in that, but I do see some of them with that yearning. So let's understand that it's not all about having a career. Consumed with the work of making his own critical life steering decisions, he demonstrates the essential shift at this age, an absolute requirement to be more self concerned. The self has no value now. That is his competency have been proved. His wife is struggling with her own age 30 priorities. She wants to go to law school, but she wants children. If she's going to stay home, she wants him to make more than family. So this is that period That's why I keep telling since the beginning of this channel, make sure before you enter any relationship at all, you understand yourself, what you want, where you are you complete? You're not going to look for your other half to complete you. Somewhere along the way, it will just ruin that. So you have to be whole as a person. We'll get to that at some point. We'll talk about that at some point. The trouble with his advice to his wife is that it comes out of his concern, his convenience, rather than with her development. She quickly picks up on his lack of goodwill. He is trying to dispose of her at the same time he refuses her the same latitude to be selfish in making an independent decision to broaden her own horizon. Both perceive the lack of mutuality. That is what Catch 30 is all about for the couple. This is more concerned on a partnership, usually around 30. That's when it's supposed to be happening. But as we know, it comes earlier. That's why a lot of couples from the past 10 years, if I'm not mistaken, has fallen short, unlike before. Yes, of course, most of them were not perfect, but at least they already had that at some form of maturity at some point. They already had a particular role in their life before they got married. They already had a stable job before they got married or before they even entered a certain form of cohabitational relationship. Good evening, Sir Hilmilo I Indencio. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for watching, sir. Okay. So moving forward, life becomes less provisional, more rational and orderly in the early 30s. We begin to settle down in full sense. Most of us begin putting down roots and sending out new shoots. People buy houses and become very earnest about climbing career ladders. Men, in particular, concern themselves with making it. Satisfaction with marriage generally goes downhill in the 30s for those who have remained together compared with the high value vision supporting marriage of the 20s. Okay. Nowadays, in the past, I think 20 years, especially in the advent of the BPO industry, we find ourselves holding certain positions, like managerial positions, a lot earlier in life. So I've met managers at the time that were like 25, as early as 25, there were already high ranking managers. So this has now moved down because I think this was based either during the 1980s or 1990s. So is it moving earlier? I don't know. Hopefully, not too fast. Now, the middle of the 30s, we come upon a crossroad. We have reached the halfway mark. Yet, even as we are reaching our prime, we begin to see there is a place where it finishes. Time starts to squeeze. The loss of youth, the faltering of physical powers that we have always taken for granted, the fading purpose of stereotype roles by which we thus have far identified ourselves The spiritual dilemma of having no absolute answer. Okay. As we reach a certain point, we start to doubt. It happens to the best of us. What's going to happen to me? Is this really where I'm supposed to be? Is this what am I supposed to be doing? Because most often than not, they say 60 is not only the retirement age, but 60 is also your graduation. Sometimes you're lucky if you can reach 60. My father died 61. So these are certain thoughts that would start creeping in your mind. Have I lived a fulfilled life? Or have I sacrificed so much into my job, into my career? That's why hindsight is 2020. That's why I implore you, if you can find at least some sense of work life balance, have some time for your family, have some time for your career, have a relationship with your children, have a relationship, most importantly, with yourself. Know your worth, know what you're responsible for. And there are certain things that you will come across in life that will try to bait you, but you can always say no. It's a lot harder to maintain integrity. That's why it takes a man of character to have integrity. Okay, docs. It is frightening to step off onto the treacherous footbridge leading to the second half of life. We can't take everything with us on this journey through uncertainty. Along the way, we discover we are alone. We no longer have to ask permission because we are the providers of our own safety. We must learn to give ourselves permission. We stumble upon feminine or masculine aspects of our nature that up to this time have usually been masked. There is grieving to be done because the old self is dying. By taking in our suppressed and even unwanted parts, we prepare at the gut level for the integration of an identity that is ours and ours alone, not some artificial form put together to please the culture or our mates. Personal identity, your self identity. So far, when you look in the mirror, is this really who you are? The way you interact with your friends, your family, and your office mates, and everyone in between. Is that really who you are, or are you putting up an act? Are you wearing a mask? That's also one of the constant message that I have in this channel. Be true, not only to others, but to yourself. It is very, very important to be aware from the beginning of who you are, what you are, where you're going, how you're going to get there, and what are you doing. These are very, very critical things that you need to know at an early point in life. Not that I'm saying Not that I'm saying I'm also in an ocean of questions. Where am I going? How am I going to get there? But at least I have some form of a moral compass, as they say. I follow something that guides me. I follow something that I believe in, and that's very important, regardless whatever it is that you believe in. As long as it points you to the direction that allows you to be a good person, to help others, to be an add on, an asset instead of a liability to others. Someone worthy of emulation by a younger child or someone that you interact with. You rub off a good thing to them. You show them something more can be done instead of negative shit, instead of irrelevant bullshit that we get to see each and every day. Yes, I can understand it's for entertainment, it's for views, it's for likes or whatever, but Jesus fucking Christ, you have to grow up at some point. Sometimes we get to hit 60 and we haven't even understood what it means to be a grown up, what it is to be a mature person. Moving forward, men too feel the time push in the mid 30s. Most men respond by pressing down harder on the career accelerator. Sometimes this is where we get confused. We trade our family for a career, or we trade our family, or we trade the career for our family, whichever weighs heavier to us. And I hope you weigh your children, you weigh your family heavier than anything else. All the riches in the world will not give you a sense of purpose. So we'll skip on this. Is this all there is? This is most often than not what we begin to step on. We begin to develop our ethical self during this particular period, the mid 30s. I hope, I honestly hope, somewhere in the mid 40s, equilibrium is regained, the new stability is achieved, which may be more or less satisfying. If one has refused to budge through the midlife transition, the safety and supports will be withdrawn from the person who is standing still. Parents will become children, children will become strangers, a mate will grow away or go away. The career will become just a job. And each of these events will be felt as an abandonment. The crisis will probably emerge again around 50. And although it's a wallop will be greater, the jolt will may just be what's needed to prod and recide middle ager towards seeking revitalization. On the other hand, if we have confronted ourselves in the middle passage and found renewal or purpose around which we are eager to build a more authentic life structure, these may well be the best years. If you start early, you reap what you sow. At 50, there is an new warmth and mellowing. Friends become more important than ever. but so does privacy, since it is so often proclaimed by people past midlife. The motto of this stage will be no more bullshit. Okay. Thankfully, it started early for some. Sometimes comes later. So we'll pause from there. That's where it ends. I'll put the title and the author in the description. I hope you can find it. I'll see if there's a published online copy of this. I'll share the link. Do we really have to wait for 50 years old or 60 years old to cut the bullshit in our life? No, I don't think so. Earlier, the better. The earlier we start facing the monsters, the earlier we fight the dragons, the earlier we battle the demons in our life, the earlier we can integrate, the earlier we can find purpose or meaning, at least in our life. If you can find that, if you can say that there is something higher than my wants and my needs, if there is a way for you to be of service to others, regardless if you believe in a deity, if you are agnostic, if you if you're a self-proclaimed atheist or whatever, as long as you are of service, as long as you play an integral part in society where you are able to help others grow into a better and stronger part of that society, then good for you. What role do you play in a larger sense? Or let's put it simply, what part do you play in the lives of the people around you? What do you provide them? Not only to your children, not only to your wife, but your friends. What are you providing? Are you a burden? Are you able to help them? Not necessarily always financially, but are you a guiding light in the darkness? Or are you the bringer of darkness? Are you that black cloud that hangs over everyone? Why? So, going back to our title, if we look at the so called backwards people of the past, those living in the past, those who hold on certain rituals that provide concrete guidance and concrete periods in life. transitory periods in life that strongly bonds you to a particular role, something you prepare for your entire life up to that point, so that you may succeed and cross beyond, like fighting a bear, or at least knowing that sense of responsibility, something you can achieve for yourself so that you may be able to provide for others. You are of value to that community. So I think that's something we may have lost along the way. Hopefully, we find it again and regain its relevance so that we have something concrete to connect us with our culture, our roles in life, and something that distinctly marks our position in life. Something we can't flip flop about, something that we're very proud of, a sense of self pride. Because I believe firmly, if you have pride in who you are, you can't be bought. If you are proud of your heritage, if you are proud of those who came before you wouldn't want to tarnish the legacy you carry behind you. You will not want to besmirch the names and lives of those who came before you. You will do your utmost, even sacrifice your life for those who will come after you. So again, life is about making choices. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful and safe rest of your evening. Thank you for staying, and happy Friday. Happy weekend. Good night.
Is everybody in?
Before we get started,
Everybody in?
does anyone want to get out?
Everybody.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows
Ceremony
things
is
are
about
bad.
to
It's a
begin.
depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. You don't go out anymore. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. There's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my... I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. At first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
Here we go.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.